I hope you've already seen Battle of the Dreadnoughts on the EckhartsLadder YouTube channel. Aside from being an awesome video, it's a positively massive project that I've collaborated on with him for the past few months, and being as it was a colossal investment for both of us, I strongly suggest you watch it if you haven't already. So now I'm going to explore a little bit of the background and behind the scenes production aspects of this battle sequence. It all started a number of months ago when EckhartsLadder contacted me to make a few starship models for the channel, notably an Eclipse II class Star Destroyer and a Viscount Star Defender. I would later be asked if it would be possible to put these two models into a battle scene, which I was excited to try, though that simple premise would soon explode into a huge, highly involved, almost cinematic project. Now, I already had the models, so I set about coming up with a basic idea for how the action would play out. I mentally constructed a course for the battle, which would have the Viscount duck under the starboard side of the Eclipse before rising up around its aft end. Here it would be disabled by huge planetary turbolaser batteries on the Eclipse, so I animated the very first shot and I came up with this. But I quickly realized that this simple introduction wasn't nearly enough to sell the mind-boggling scale of the Viscount. The thing is like 17 kilometers long. So the very first shot that I made for this, I actually scrapped immediately, so I could introduce the scale of the ship with a little more pomp and circumstance. And to do that, I employed the same trick that the Empire Strikes Back used to communicate the scale of the Super Star Destroyer. But this time we're using Moncal ships instead of Star Destroyers. Now this is as good a time as any to explain how a shot like this is actually made. Pretty much all the magic for this particular sequence happens inside Element 3D, which is a plugin for Adobe After Effects that allows me to do simple 3D rendering and animation right inside the After Effects workspace, which lets me use After Effects built-in keyframing, lighting, and camera controls, which is a super fast way to work, at least for me. I can pretty easily load up the models, and virtually in seconds, I'm already animating pretty much the final scene. And this, by the way, is how I do virtually every 3D animation on my channel, whether that be a simple logo or a hologram or a full-fledged flyby. So the next stage of many shots would be adding blaster bolts and explosions and stuff like that, and that's actually not done in the same 3D space. I'll completely export the 3D animation and re-import it as a video, on top of which I basically make another 3D space. And the benefit of this, aside from not slowing down my computer, is that I can actually kind of cheat with the 3D space. These ships are positively enormous, and in reality the turbolaser bolts would be probably impossibly tiny, too small to see clearly, so at a decipherable scale they wouldn't actually travel far enough to sell the objectively large distance between the ships. But by separating things out this way, I can actually make the blasts appear to travel much further and create the optical illusion that the distances are greater. Optical illusion can be a pretty important tool with VFX, where you can do things that aren't physically possible within the same shot. So for instance, to really capture this looming, imposing eclipse here, I actually squished the ship kinda comically to suit the shot. The accurate scaling is still an arguably impressive shot, but it's not what I was going for. So finally, it's worth mentioning the live action footage. I didn't originally intend to do this, but I thought it would be really cool to introduce some interiors and people. So what I did was identify shots that could be easily modified to be significantly different from the source material. So let's take a look at this shot, which is based on a shot from Return of the Jedi. I added a bit of extra set to cover up the hologram, as well as extend the frame to fit in a standard widescreen format. And then I added some 3D greebling to imply some kind of engineering function and mentally transport us to a different part of the ship from the original clip. Finally, some camera shake, lighting flicker, sparks, and a few other things, and you can create a completely different scenario. And that's what I did for virtually all of these shots, though some required more rotoscoping and some were more drastically changed than others. But that's just a little peek into the process behind this project. This sort of project is a huge amount of work, but it's a really fun creative process that I'd really like to keep doing in the future. This film was funded and hosted by EckhartsLadder, but I would like to make some content like this for the EC Henry channel, and that's where you guys can come in. The absolute best way you can help out is to support the channel on Patreon. Right now, patrons pledging $5 or more each month can vote on what they would like to see next from me. I'm bouncing between two options here. Do you guys want to see a tense one-on-one dogfight between two of my original ship designs, notably the TIE Vector and a Rebel ship that I designed from scratch? Or do you want to see a segment of the climactic Skyhook battle from Shadows of the Empire, where I'm actually planning on casting and costuming a live-action Dash Rendar? So if you want to be part of that decision-making process and you want to support more work like this going forward, please consider helping me out on Patreon. To the rest of you, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed Battle of the Dreadnoughts and learning a bit more about it, and I hope to see you next time.